Ambassador,
Hi, Senator.
thanks for the time that we were able to connect earlier. You've been a customer of the CIA's intelligence for many years in your various roles at state.
And welcome back to News Now from Fox. I'm Daytona Everett. Going to carry you through this next hour here. And we have a conversation, a live report coming up with Fox Business Gerri Willis. She's here to talk about student loans and that debt forgiveness, but it's not being met without any controversy. Democrats actually coming up against President Biden on this right here. Gerri, thanks for being with us on News Now from Fox. We appreciate you taking the time out of your day.
Thank you.
So let's get started.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a fascinating story, right? Yeah, so $1.56 trillion in outstanding student loan debt. The left wants to have this debt forgiven as much as $50,000 on an individual basis. I mean, imagine that. Pretty dramatic. It appears that the president is not going to do that. He doesn't want to do that. But he may end up forgiving $10,000, which would still be, a very large amount of money in student loan debts. But we talk to people who have student loan debt, who are having a hard time paying it, and people who have paid it off to find out what's going on out there. Matthew Burr is the author of the book, Slay the Student Debt Dragon. And he told us, hey, it is possible to pay off this debt. He had, get this, $191,000 worth of student loan debt from 2 different degrees, and he paid it off in less than 5 years. I believe we have the sound from him. Listen to this.
Gerri, unfortunately, we don't have that sound from that, but can you explain kind of what he said? This is an issue that tons of college students who couldn't even go to school this year are dealing with, right?
That's absolutely right. And Matthew told me that he cut his monthly costs to the bone. He didn't have cable. He didn't have Wi-Fi. He was carrying a BlackBerry around until it was practically a museum piece. And then what he did was he used what he called a snowflake method for paying off the debt, which is to say he made multiple payments every single week. He would send out 10, 20, $50, $100 to his creditors, trying to drive down those numbers and make sure that he kept his interest rates lower and what he was paying in interest very, very low. So he made extreme sacrifices. And then on top of that, he started a business. He got 5 jobs and put all that money towards paying off his bills. By the way, he's gotten 1 more degree, this one an advanced degree. He still owes $17,000, but he says, hey, I'll have that behind me in just a few more months.
It's so amazing to hear that there is some light at the end of the tunnel. But as far as debt forgiveness, what's next for President Biden and his administration?
Well, it's a great question, and it is a huge debate. And we still hear people like Senator Chuck Schumer pressuring the president to forgive as much as $50,000 for individuals in student loan debt. I think it's more likely that he might forgive a smaller amount of money, and he's looking very seriously at making some degrees free. So if you make $125,000 as a family and your child goes to a state school, you might be able to do that with no debt whatsoever. So there's going to be some big changes coming, and it's going to have to be hammered out. I'm sure it will be a very contentious conversation in Washington, but then what isn't these days?
Yeah, totally. You emphasize the word public universities. So what about private, all those students who are there?
That's where the big debts really are. We talked to another young man who had gotten a doctoral degree at a private school and run up $600,000 worth of debt. He's a doctor, and he is unable to pay it back. And now he's so angry, he's joined this movement called the Debt Collective. And together, all these folks are not paying their college debt because they say it's unfair. So you're going to have to watch out here. There's going to be some interesting protests going on as we get into this big public debate over what is really, a difficult problem for so many Americans right now.
Yeah, and an unfortunate story right there, as we really need those medical providers right now, those doctors and nurses and everything along those lines. Anything that you're going to be watching, Gerri, moving forward?
So I will be watching to find out if the universities are going to step up and do anything. Look, the universities have been raising prices for quite some time, right? Do you see tuitions come down? Not very often.
Yeah.
And I think there's a certain amount of responsibility that falls to these colleges, these universities. They really need to pick up the pace on what they're willing to do now. And so we'll see if they make some kind of offer, if they try to make things easier for students out there.
Yeah. Honestly, it'll be interesting to see what happens with attendance in general. I mean, a lot of people are just saying, you know what, I'm going to go into my first job instead of going to school, having to reap all of that debt. Attendance will be interesting too, and then how universities respond to that if it looks different going into these next few years here, right?
And why not do it all remotely? Because you can do it at a
Sure.
fraction of the cost at a number of different players. So I think they're getting more practical about this. You know, you used to think of college as this thing that you had to have that was super special and you had to do it in a certain kind of way, be on campus. People are reevaluating all of that right now, and it's only partly because of COVID.
Yeah, I know. Look at us right now, virtually next to each other on the screen. Well, I'm happy that we could touch on like 20 different topics here, Gerri. Thanks for joining us here on NewsNOW from Fox. We hope to speak to you again soon.
Thank you.
And great information.